All right, y'all, so we are talking about energy in phases here, starting off with endothermic and exothermic reactions. So endothermic and exothermic frequently refer to chemical changes. However, they can also be applied to physical changes because what we're looking at really is a storage or release of energy. So endothermic reactions feel cold. Exothermic reactions feel hot. Endothermic reactions feel cold because they're storing energy. They're sucking it in, they're pulling it out of the environment, and therefore the environment's feeling cold. Exothermic reactions feel hot because they are releasing the energy that they had stored to the environment. If we look at drawings of these endothermic, exothermic graphs, we put potential energy on the y-axis for this sketch, and we have time or the reaction coordinate, which just means, here we're starting with reactants, and then here at the end we've made products. And in an endothermic reaction, well, we know endothermic reactions store energy, and so the products need to have more energy than the reactants did. So you end up getting a shape that is somewhat like this. The size of the hump here will vary, but you end up with a graph that looks like that for endothermic, a graph that looks like that for exothermic, where our energy inside the product is lost to the environment. So that energy that was in the reactant is released, goes into the environment. We feel that energy as heat, and the product has less stored potential energy than the reactants did. Gas, liquid, solid, kinetic energy, and temperature. So remembering, I'm going to go and start with number 3 here, that temperature is a measurement of average kinetic speed. Remember kinetic energy, not speed, kinetic energy of molecules in a substance. So remembering that the kinetic energy is movement energy. As things move faster, those molecules start kind of hitting our thermometer with more energy, and we feel that energy is heat. What happens to the kinetic energy of molecules as they heat? Well, you all did the simulation on this where you saw that as we heat molecules up, they start to shake and then spin, and then they ricochet off. So in the FET and everything else, you saw, sorry for that kind of interruption, but coming back to it, that as we heat something, what we're really doing is we're adding kinetic energy to the molecules. We're making them move faster. So it increases as they heat. Here it decreases as they cool. And we saw this in the ice cream lab when you all felt that very, very cold temperature as the kinetic energy of the cream was being transformed and stored as potential energy in the ice cream. So specific heat capacity is how much energy it takes to raise a gram of a material 1 degree Celsius. In layman's terms, it's really how easy it is to change the temperature of a substance. And we talked about this with hydrogen bonds and with the planet, how water has quite a high specific heat capacity. When we did our boiling point graph, we saw that we had acetone, isopropyl alcohol, and water. They're all fairly similar in molecular size, but water is the smallest, and yet it had the highest specific heat capacity. So even though we had these very small molecules, which you would imagine would make them, move a little bit faster or easier, the specific heat capacity in this case was not straightly linear. And then we looked at intermolecular forces to kind of see how that might be explained. All right, boiling point and melting point. Well, on this graph, you can see as time is going, as energy is being added to the system, our temperature is increasing. And we know that when a phase change is occurring, between solid and liquid, or between liquid and gas. The temperature stays the same until the phase change has been completed. So in this case, from A to B, we have a solid that's heating up, all right? And the solid is heating up, and at point B, it starts melting. And from point B to point C, it's melting. And so we know that as long as there's some solid left, the temperature of that substance should be the same, because the phase change is occurring. And then once it's all become liquid at C, it heats up, and then at D, it starts to boil. And then we saw this in our boiling point graphs. We saw it flatten out, and it stays flattened out until all of the liquid becomes a gas, and then the gas can be heated again. So we talked about how with boiling water, if you spill it on yourself, it does not actually get hotter the longer it's been boiling. It is the same temperature, and that's why we can cook things in boiling water, is because it gives a very stable temperature environment for things to cook and cook through. Once the water is boiling again, theoretically, depending, if you have a very dense piece of something, it may not be heated all the way through the core, but especially if it's been boiling after a few minutes, 5 to 10, like for sure, the temperature inside of the meat is the same as the temperature of the water if the whole thing has been boiling and it's had that time to cook through. And so that's why we can cook in boiling water. So that is energy in phases. Thank you much.